Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho. It is Thursday, the 20th of February, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Let's get to the stories that matter today. Vice President Sara Duterte files a petition to stop the impeachment proceedings against her. He calls the complaint an act of desperation. The Philippines will file yet another diplomatic protest against China after the recent harassment at Bajo de Masinloc. The details will get straight from the Philippine Coast Guard. And church officials call on the public to pray for Pope Francis's recovery. The Vatican says Pope Francis is breathing on his own despite pneumonia. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first up on the agenda, it is Vice President Sara Duterte's turn to challenge her very own impeachment by the House of Representatives. Here's the report.
Vice President Sara Duterte filed a petition for temporary restraining order and writ of preliminary injunction to halt her impeachment trial at the Senate before it even begins. This is on top of a similar petition filed by a group of Mindanao lawyers also challenging the constitutionality of the impeachment process. Duterte invoked the rule, stating that only one ouster complaint can be filed against an impeachable official within a year. She said that's not what happened between December 2 and February 5, when 4 impeachment complaints were filed, 3 of which the lower chamber failed to act on. Her counsel, Attorney Sheila Sison of Fortuna Nervasa, said they will exhaust all legal remedies available to them.
Normal naman na ganun yung magiging reaction nila. Pero sa totoo lang, I don't think, hindi ko makita kung saan galing yung desperasyon kung pinag-aralan yung argumento.
The Vice President's team believes that the manner of filing the complaint was defective.
Even as the House has the exclusive power to initiate all cases of impeachment, hindi po yun absolute. Malinaw na sinabi ng Korte Suprema na itong power na ito, itong kapangyarihan na ito, ay subject sa parameters or constitutionally imposed standards, such as the manner of filing, the number of votes required, and the one-year constitutional bar. Bago mag-proceed, ang palagay ko dapat munang i-resolve yung question ng petition.
In her petition, Duterte listed as one of her legal counsels her father, former President Rodrigo Duterte. That makes it 3 petitions pending before the Supreme Court related to the impeachment. According to Senate President Chiza Escudero, they will respect whatever the High Court's decision will be. But he is standing by his decision not to call an impeachment court until after their break.
Wala namang magaganap dahil recess. Ulitin ko, ano man ang sinasabi ni Numan, hanggat walang sesyon at hindi na-convene ng may sesyon, walang trial na pwede maganap habang kami naka-recess. Klaro at maliwanag sa rules namin yun.
Some House lawmakers criticized the petition filed by Vice President Sara Duterte before the Supreme Court to stop her impending impeachment trial. According to House Senior Deputy Speaker Aurelio Gonzalez, it seems the Vice President is desperate to escape accountability. House Deputy Speaker J.J. Suarez argued that if the Vice President is truly innocent, she should face the allegations instead of avoiding the process and turning to the Supreme Court. For Batangas 2nd District Representative Jinky Luistro, who will serve as one of the impeachment prosecutors, there is no legal basis to stop the impeachment trial. She also said that the House did not rush the 4th impeachment complaint submitted to the Senate. Meanwhile, Iloilo 3rd District Representative Lawrence Defensor believes the Supreme Court should not intervene in the impeachment process, a sentiment echoed by former Senate President Franklin Drilon.
Yung verification po na kanilang question, it was followed word for word as written in the rules. So, it is our humble opinion na there's nothing wrong with the verification.
The basic rule is found in the Constitution. The impeachment court shall decide all impeachment cases. Leave it to the judgment of the Senate asking or acting as an impeachment court to decide on this, including questions of jurisdiction. So it's best that the Supreme Court does not interfere.
The Comelec is accusing a fellow government agency of red tagging Chairman George Garcia said the agency, which he declined to identify, sent a letter warning the poll body against a new policy. The policy prohibits discriminatory and harassment acts during the campaign period for the May elections. Garcia explained that they see nothing wrong with the policy as such acts are forms of harassment and intimidation.
Napaka-unfair kasi na bigla ka nalang sasabihan na ikaw ay miyembro ng makakaliwang grupong ganito o ikaw ay miyembro ng ganitong grupo o terorista ka. We are not condemning the action of other agencies of government. What we are saying is we are condemning the act per se because that is wrong, because that is illegal.
Senators have reacted differently to former President Rodrigo Duterte's kill remarks against some members of the upper chamber. Some have expressed concern, while there are also those who dismissed it as a joke. Well, let's talk more about this with PNP CIDG Chief Major General Nicolas Torre III, who filed criminal complaints against the former president. He joins us on Morning Matters this morning. Magandang umaga po.
Magandang umaga, ma'am, at sa inyo mga tagapakinig.
Okay, Major General, unang-una, I know you said that you are filing this as a Filipino citizen and as a PNP CIDG chief. But isn't this complaint supposed to come from the senators who are the subject of this remark? Bakit po kayo?
Well, I would like to clarify. What I filed is inciting to sedition and unlawful utterances. We don't need any private complainant on that. And actually, there's another PD that was overlooked. That hindi na kailangan ang private complainant at ito'y malaense. The act in itself is the one prohibited. Even the motive is not necessary to be established. Basta yung ginawa lang, like a bomb joke, ang bomb joke ay hindi kailangan ng motive eh. Parang the act in itself is the one punishable.
Pero wala pong kumausap sa inyo, nag-udyok sa inyo na mag-file ng mga charges na ito?
No, this is a public crime and I do believe na alam ng lahat, nakikita ng lahat, it's a violation of law, it's really nilalapastangan ng batas natin at it will be very, very unbecoming on my part at nakakaya on my part as Chief of the CIDG if may iba pang mag-file ng complaint against Mr. Duterte on behalf of the public. So, I deem it necessary to give voice to the voiceless and yung sa mga taong nasa sidelines lang na sigurado ako na hindi naman sang-ayon sa mga nangyayari sa pinagagagawa ni Duterte. So, I'm one of them na hindi talaga sang-ayon sa kanyang ginagawa.
Chief, kayo na po nagsabi na we've heard this time and time again at dapat hindi ito maging normal. But what makes it different this time around? Even NBI Director Jaime Santiago said this is rhetoric, this is political propaganda. Even Chis Escudero said nakakalungkot man yung mga ganyang pahayag, namamanhid man tayo sa mga ganyan, parang okay na rin dahil nasanay tayo sa 6 na taon. What makes it different this time around that there are charges actually filed on your end?
Well, una, I would like to qualify. I would like to reiterate na I don't like to comment. Hindi ako magko-comment sa kung ano man ang opinion na iba pang mga leaders natin regarding sa ibang opinion nila or ibang opposing views or ibang pananaw nila sa ginawa kong to. But on my part, I really can't fathom na pabayaan na lang itong nagiging normal na itong ganitong klaseng behavior sa ating community. Parang hindi ka tanggap-tanggap na dahil ba nasanay tayo sa 6 na taon, ngayong bagong Pilipinas na, ay ganun pa rin. Hindi na ba tayo pwedeng magbago? Hindi ba tayo pwedeng bumalikwas? At it's like sa tama. Kasi nakikita natin, hindi porke nagiging normal siya for the past 6 years, naging tama siya. Hindi ganun. I don't believe in that. So, I do believe na pag-asa pa rin tayong magbago at umayos naman. At hindi ganitong lahat na lang idadaanin natin sa barabuhan at sa salitang kanto, salitang sanggano, na at the end of the day, hindi naman kayang panindigan. It placed under closer scrutiny. Hindi na kayang panindigan. Hindi na kayang i-sustain And
Major General, puntahan po natin yung dalawang charges po. No? Yung isa, unlawful utterances, and the other one is inciting to sedition. Maaari niyo po bang maipaliwanag bakit yung dalawang kaso na yan?
First and foremost, yung inciting to sedition, napakaraming enumerations ko na inilagay doon. Hindi lang naman dyan sa una niyang sa statement niya na yan dyan sa rally na yan. Dahil for so many times, ano ang mga ginagawa niya? Pinababa ang presidente, tinatawag ng kung ano-anong mga pangalan na hindi naman masubstantiate. At in general, he is just fomenting chaos sa ating bansa ngayon, sa administrasyon, na iba na ang namumuno. Sa unlawful utterances naman, ito talaga, at the end of the day, sasabihin ng iba, joke only. Ito ang pinakasimpleng explanation dyan. Pag-upo niya, sa inaugural speech niya, anong mga pangako? Patatabay ng isda sa Manila Bay, papupulahin ng tubig dagat sa Manila Bay, at pagpapatayin lahat ng adik. So, ano nangyari? In the first 2 months, ang daming namatay. Ang daming namatay, may mga nanlaban, konti lang actually nanlaban doon. Ang marami doon is yung natandem. Natandem na ang explanation, nag-away-away daw ang mga drug syndicates at nagbarilan, nagpatayan dahil nag-aagawa ng customer, nag-aagawa ng turf, and etc. Na hanggang ngayon ay napakarami ng unsolved.
Major General,
doon?
ibig sabihin po ba ay
Diba?
bubuksan nyo rin yung mga dati niya pong nasabi in order, because you said this is first going through a case build-up, and in that process, bubuksan nyo rin po ba yung iba pang mga sinabi o unlawful utterances, possible unlawful utterances of the former president?
Yes, because I'm looking at the pattern. Sinabi niya ganito, maraming mamamatay, maraming nga namatay. So, nung inimbestigahan ngayon sa Kongreso, hindi niya naman masabi na sinabi niya at magde-deny na siya na ito ang sinabi ko, i-qualify niya. So, ano ibig sabihin nun? Joke only na lang yun. Sinabi niyang nangako siya na, sige, I don't care about human lives. I care about human rights. Sige, magtrabaho lang kayo. Pag may namatay, akin yan. Pag may nirape kayo, akin yan. Napatay si Kian de los Santos. Nakulong ang mga pulis. Presidente pa siya noong time na yun. He can give the pardon. He is really up to that promise. Hindi niya naman ginawa. Takot naman din sa public backlash. So at the end of the day, yung mga pulis na sumunod sa kanya, yung mga taong sumunod sa kanya, pag humingi na ng tulong, kasi sabihin, diba, diretso niya sinabi yun, naniwala naman kayo, yung jet ski, diba? Naniwala naman kayo sa akin. Kampanya lang yun. So, ibig sabihin, joke only yun. Ngayon, itong patayin ng 15 senador, bombahin ng Senado, kung may sumunod at may namatay, nabomba ang Senado, ano sasabihin niya? Kaya naniwala sa akin, tanga kayo, joke only lang yun. Which is unbecoming. That's really unbecoming because he is not an ordinary person. He is somebody that's being looked up to by thousands, if not millions of people. Marami bumoto sa kanya Pero, hindi ibig sabihin, the more na dapat, mag-circumspect siya, irresponsible siya sa kanyang mga pahayag. Kaya, I'm bringing him support so that tingnan natin kung hanggang saan ang kanyang galing bilang abogado at maipalisip niya.
Alright, maraming salamat po sa inyong paliwanag. Looks like we are going to open a can of worms with those cases right there. But gusto pa namin humingi ng paliwanag, pero sa susunod na lang po, kung maimbitahan po kayo dito sa studio. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us this morning and bringing clarity to that. We have PNP CIDG Chief Major General Nicolas Torre III. Don't go away. More on Morning Matters when we return. Welcome back. You're still with us here on Morning Matters. The Philippines is set to file another diplomatic protest against China. This comes after a recent incident over Scarborough Shoal, where a Chinese Navy helicopter tailed and flew as close as 3 meters above a Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources aircraft. The National Maritime Council condemned the unprofessional and reckless maneuvers of the Chinese military aircraft. It emphasized that such actions violate international norms on airmanship and flight safety. Beijing, however, defended its actions, claiming that the Philippine aircraft illegally intruded into its airspace and violated its sovereignty. The Chinese government also accused the Philippines of spreading false narratives, a claim strongly refuted by the Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson Commodore J. Tariela. Now, joining us now on Morning Matters is Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela. Welcome to the show. Magandang umaga.
Magandang umaga, Gretchen, at magandang umaga sa mga taga-subaybay mo. And congratulations dito sa morning show.
Ay, maraming salamat. Okay, let's talk about this incident that happened February 18. Can you talk to us more about the dangerous maneuvers conducted by the PLA Navy chopper and help us understand the gravity of the situation? Gaano kalapit, gaano kadelikado, and is this the first time that this kind of incident occurred?
Well, the BPAR aircraft, no, nang dumating ito sa airspace ng Bajo de Masinloc, ang PLA Navy helicopter immediately approached them, and for the entire 40 minutes na nasa territorial airspace sila ng Bajo de Masinloc, ang helicopter na to ay patuloy na gumilid-gilid sa kanila. And there are two instances na nag-carry out siya ng dangerous maneuver. No? The first one was the one that we saw from the video, na it came close as near as 3 meters or barely 10 feet. Pupunta siya sa gilid nitong bakpak, sa port side, and then eventually umibabaw pa sa aircraft. And then the second time na nag-approach siya is etong distance na to, na 10 meters. So obviously and evidently, no, the PLA Navy helicopter never really hesitated to carry out this dangerous maneuver. They disregarded the safety of the aircraft and its passengers, knowing for a fact na ang ginagawa natin dito is a legitimate MDA flight because this falls within our territorial airspace dito sa Bajo de Masinloc.
Okay, similar to what happens over at sea, we do know that radio challenges happen before that close encounter. In this case, did radio challenges happen? Because we saw a report with a pilot saying, you are flying too close, you are very dangerous. So meron po bang naging ganun na exchange?
Yes, the BFAR pilot immediately informed the PLA Navy helicopter pilot na ang ginagawa nilang maneuver, getting closer to the aircraft, is dangerous to the Philippine aircraft. And yet they ignored this and they keep on getting closer sa BFAR aircraft natin.
So in short, nagkakarinigan po sila?
Yes, they have established communication between the helicopter and even the PLA Navy warship na kung saan nanggaling itong PLA Navy helicopter.
How many radio challenges happened before that very, very close encounter?
I'm sorry, Gretchen, no, but I don't have the exact number of the radio challenges and the radio responses ng ating BFAR pilot.
At that point, how close were they to the vicinity of Bajo de Masinloc? Were they over it?
They are over the Bajo de Masinloc shoal. That's actually the territorial airspace of the Philippine government.
Okay. You said that this disregarded international aviation safety norms. Let's get into the technicalities a bit. Ano po ba pag sa ganito yung ideal separation between two aircraft when you talk about international standards? We do know that one aircraft is off a fixed wing and another one has a rotor wing. So magkaiba po yan ng ano. Pero ano po yung sinusunod madalas? Tsaka yung boundaries po nun.
Yeah, obviously in this kind of two different aircraft, the helicopter and the fixed wing, ito yung aircraft naman natin, they're not supposed to come close to each other. No? There is a certain distance that they need to follow because as what you can recall, no, sa nakaraang insidente sa Washington, this involves a fixed wing and also a rotary aircraft, no, helicopter. So there's a regulated distance between these two types of aircraft because you wouldn't know kung ang helicopter kasi is more maneuverable compared with the fixed wing, no? And that has also been the challenge dito sa piloto natin, no, ng BFAR. Because some are asking bakit hindi daw kasi lumayo itong piloto ng BFAR gayong alam niya namang lumalapit yung helicopter. Well, the dilemma of our BFAR pilot is that he cannot anticipate where the Chinese pilot will be going. It's either he will go up or pupunta sa ilalim or gigilid lang sa pakpak niya. And that is the reason why we have established regulation about keeping distance between the rotor aircraft and the fixed wing.
I did notice on your Twitter account that the video or material that you posted was from a reporter, Camille Elemia. I mean, who was on board the B-4 aircraft and what were they doing there?
Well, there are Coast Guard personnel on board and B-4 personnel as well, since this is a B-4 aircraft. And we also invited some of the photojournalists. I think it's important for us to once again involve the media, our media friends, no? Because nitong mga nakaraang araw when we started, publishing itong incursion ng China sa ating coast sa Zambales, some of the Chinese trolls are saying that here we go again, we're doing propaganda because it's only us who's taking the videos and photos. So what we did right now is to bring the media, photojournalists, on board the B-4 aircraft for them to capture the images and videos ng Chinese Coast Guard off the coast of Zambales. But what had happened is ito pa, no? At least nakuhaan ito ng ating mga media friends to show the world and to show the Filipino people that the People's Republic of China is blatantly violating international law and regulations. And they do not care about the safety of the Filipino crew and ordinary civilian aircraft.
I ask this because I do remember with this incident when a chopper harassed Filipino scientists over Sandy Cay at the other side of the West Philippine Sea. But doon kasi may malapit na military base yung China. Dito, medyo malayo. Ano? Saan kaya ang maaaring pinanggalingan nung kanilang chopper?
Well, there's a possibility na ito yung nakita ng ating mga kasama sa media, no? Because of their big lens. They were able to capture a distantly located PLA Navy warship, no? The PLA Navy 502. At the same time, ito rin naman yung warship na nag-challenge din sa aircraft natin. So there's a high chance, no, na itong PLA Navy helicopter na to came from one of those warships that were challenging the B-4 aircraft when we were doing the MDA flight.
Well, it seems that with what is happening over Scarborough Shoal, that China is hell-bent on staking their territory in this area. How do we continue to defend our claim? Ano po ang balak po natin given how much of a stronghold they're trying to make over this fort?
No, Gretchen, without giving any operational details of our plans, one thing is clear, no, that despite of the harassment, despite of power projection of the PLA Navy and even the China Coast Guard, they started the year by deploying their China Coast Guard monster ship, and until now they are deploying a lot of Coast Guard vessels off the coast of Zambales and also in Bajo de Masinloc. But one thing is certain, no? We're not going to stop carrying out and asserting our position in the West Philippine Sea. Despite of our smaller vessels and the lesser number of Coast Guard vessels, ang ating pong komandante, Admiral Ronnie Hilgavan, has expressed his commitment to the President that we're still going to keep on pushing further the China Coast Guard off the coast of Zambales. And the same thing with B-4. Despite of this kind of harassment from the PLA Navy helicopter, I don't think that this will prevent the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources in carrying out another MDA flight.
Well, Commodore, we do know that once these actions start, these dangerous maneuvers, they have a tendency of repeating. For example, the water cannoning, the laser pointing, and other harassment over the West Philippine Sea. How do we keep our pilots safe? Because we do know that this is a razor-thin line that they're treading here.
Well, Gretchen, every time we deploy our whether Coast Guard skippers ng ating mga barko, Coast Guard pilots and B-4 pilots, we always ensure that these are the best pilots and best skippers that we're going to deploy, especially in those areas na masasabi nating escalatory talaga ang response ng China. The main reason why we're doing this is to ensure that no accident or no disaster will ever happen despite of the unlawful bullying of the Chinese government. And the skills of the pilot of the B-4 nitong nakaraang MDA flight clearly showed how good he is as a pilot for such accident to happen, despite of this dangerous maneuvering of the PLA Navy helicopter.
Commodore, punta naman tayo sa ibang topic. We do know that you were at the hearing the other day, the hearing on fake news over at the Congress, and you had an exchange with Congressman Marcoleta. Ang unang tanong ko ay, nakita ba kayo sa hallway? Nagkabatian ba kayo?
Alam mo, Gretchen, I was supposed to join that MDA flight. Kaya lang napatawag nga ako sa Kongreso because of the TRICOM hearing. And nagkaroon kami ng paliwanagan ni Congressman Marcoleta. I think his main concern then was tinawag ko daw siyang traidor. Pero everything's clear already. I know that Honorable Marcoleta was also one of your guests. And he really explained yung salitang tinawag ko daw siyang traitor. Since everything's clear already, after that, he approached me, we shake hands, and we clarified na nothing's personal, and I didn't call him traitor.
Okay. So where do you think that he got the sense that you did?
I think it's because of some of the comments of the netizens or trolls or whoever. But my public posting on X and different social media platforms, you're going to check it. Wala naman talaga akong sinabing traitor against Congressman Marcoleta.
In a sense, he kind of also fell for fake news.
Well, fake news or comments siguro, no? I would rather say na nabasa niya siguro yung comments ng mga tao, and he thought na na-attribute sa sinabi ko yun.
Well, Commodore, we actually had Congressman Marcoleta over at the show the other day, and he was explaining his statement on the West Philippine Sea. In a sense, hindi naman po mali yung sinabi niya, di po ba, na West Philippine Sea is not yet recognized in international maps. It is not yet there. In fact, he said dapat i-file ito sa IHO, and that there is a need to educate Filipinos about the real situation over at our seas.
Well, that was his statement in your show. But my response on his first statements in last February 10 in the TRICOM meeting, this was a response when he said na gawa-gawa lang natin to, right? So he has some technical basis, the technicality of it. But for somebody to argue na gawa-gawa lang natin ang West Philippine Sea, I don't think that is appropriate. But eventually, I think Congressman Marcoleta already highlighted the fact that that's not what he literally meant. He was saying na ito ay exclusive economic zone pa rin, with or without a name. But again, I wouldn't agree with him na sabihin with or without a name. Kung kinikilala talaga nating atin ito, there's no reason for us to hesitate not to call it West Philippine Sea. Secondly, how would the world support our position in calling it West Philippine Sea kung tayo mismo hindi natin siya tatawaging West Philippine Sea? Before the world recognize that this is West Philippine Sea, we should first keep on calling it as such.
And actually, that is not just rhetoric. It is part of the process. Even AO29, that officially called the seas West Philippine Sea, recognized this process of first adopting it locally and then proposing to the IHO to have it officially changed. Last I checked, we had 9 proposals. Do you have an update as to what the status is of those 9 proposals?
I'm sorry, Gretchen, I don't have the the updates about the 9 proposals that NAMRI together with some agencies that we submitted in IHO.
Yung NAMRIA maps po natin, meron na po ba tayong plano doon? Kailan po lalabas yung bagong NAMRIA maps according to the 2 new laws?
I think the NAMRIA is still working on this. They are just finalizing some of the things that would not, harm our diplomatic relations with some of our neighbors. But of course, the NAMRIA, for those who are claiming na ang NAMRIA ay hirap na hirap i-define ang baseline, hirap na I don't think that such difficulty is the reason. We just have to come up with a map na talagang diplomatically sensible.
All right. I think Congressman Marcoleta does invite us to look into the technicalities of this a little bit deeper. But speaking of educating people about the real situation of the West Philippine Sea, do you think he had a point about it? Sabi niya, paulit-ulit niya sinasabi na we fall for fake news. Ito yung sinispread ng mga vloggers na fake news na West Philippine Sea. Actually, hindi ko nakuha masyado kung ano po yung fake news that he was referring to. But don't you think that he had a point about educating when we talk about territorial seas, when we talk about EEZ, yung mga salitang ginagamit natin para malaman talaga ng mga tao yung tunay na lagay?
Well, first of all, that's the main objective of the transparency efforts of the National Task Force West Philippine Sea. It's not just about exposing Chinese aggressive action, but the NTF-WPS, under the leadership of General Eduardo Año, have extended an extra mile to educate the Filipino youth, to engage the local government leaders. We have LGU Caravan, we have University Caravan, we engage the students. We gave away comic book to educate the Filipino people about UNCLOS, the Arbitral Award, and even the position of the Philippine government when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. Even without Congressman Marcoleta calling out to educate the Filipino people, that has been one of the premise of the transparency effort. Secondly, yung sinabing we need to educate kasi fake news ang Pilipino pagdating sa West Philippine Sea. I don't think that the Philippine government is making fake news in our own advantage. What we are propagating are factual narrative. These are all anchored with facts and also in accordance with the international law.
All right, thank you so much for that, for providing context to what happened over at Bajo de Masinloc and also the West Philippine Sea. That was a Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, on Morning Matters today.
Thank you.
The National Food Authority has started distributing low-cost rice to local government units under the Food Security Emergency Program. The NFA plans to distribute approximately 150,000 metric tons of rice over the next 6 months to address supply concerns. It is being sold at 33 pesos a kilo with a suggested retail price of 35 pesos a kilo for consumers. According to the Department of Agriculture, it is for the LGUs to decide whether to limit the quantity for each consumer purchase. The DA assures the public that the rice being released is of good quality due to stricter quality control measures.
Actually, from initial information that I gathered is pinahold yung selling nun dahil nung pagbukas nga, may nakitang konti, di ba? But then, hindi nga namin alam, iniimbestigahan bakit tinuloy yung benta when it was actually pinastop yung benta. Definitely, it is an isolated incident.
Just earlier today at 6 a.m., Cesar Chavez announced that he is stepping down as the acting secretary of the Presidential Communications Office. In a statement, Chavez said that he submitted his irrevocable resignation on February 5. He hopes to step down at the end of the month or earlier. Now, despite his resignation, Chavez expressed continued support for the administration, calling his role an honor of a lifetime. He admitted regret over falling short of expectations, but did not disclose specific reasons for his resignation. And just in, Malacanang has appointed former journalist Jay Ruiz as the Presidential Communications Office Chief. In other news, Pope Francis, who is battling double pneumonia, is now in a stable condition and has shown slight improvement. The Vatican said the blood tests show a slight improvement, particularly in the inflammatory markers. The 88-year-old is undergoing treatment at Rome's Gemelli Hospital, where he was admitted on February 14. Messages of support have come from around the world, including from pilgrims at the Pope's canceled weekly audience. And when we return, more discussion about the impeachment of Vice President Duterte with former Senator Laila de Lima. Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back. I'm Gretchen Ho, and this is Morning Matters. Senate President Cheese Escudero said the upper chamber will not yield to pressure to fast-track the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. He dismissed claims of a strong public demand to expedite the proceedings, questioning the supposed clamor from only a few individuals. The historic impeachment case transmitted to the Senate before Congress adjourned has sparked legal battles at the Supreme Court, some seeking to compel the trial to proceed, others pushing to halt it. Escudero maintained that the trial will begin in the 20th Congress after the midterm elections. Meanwhile, Batangas 2nd District Representative Jinky Luistro, one of the impeachment prosecutors, argued that there is public demand for the Senate to convene as an impeachment court. She also assured that due process would be upheld in Duterte's impeachment trial. And we had the opportunity to speak with former Senator and Mamamayang Liberal Party List first nominee Laila de Lima to give us context on the impeachment and various issues. Let's tune into this. We have seen you very active on the political front. We have seen you file the first impeachment complaint. We have also seen you in several hearings, particularly at the Senate. You were beside the former president. It seems that you did not even take a personal break.
Yes, you can say that again, Gretchen. Okay, let me just clarify a bit. No, I'm not actually a complainant, but the designated spokesperson of the first group of complainants sa impeachment. The complaint was filed in December 2. And then I had several appearances before the Quad Committee hearings. Correct. Where magkatabi nga kami ng former president.
Okay, what is your reaction to how this impeachment complaint is being held and dealt with? It is with the Senate now. Kumbaga, nasa kanila na yung bola. And Senate President Cheese Escudero has said that this could be tackled right after the State of the Nation address. We have to wait for 5 long months.
Yeah, okay. First, well, on the part of the first group of complainants, we were expecting actually the House of Representatives to act on the complaints early on, because that was filed in December 2, the first impeachment complainant. But they waited for when there was this Christmas break, and then when they resumed in January 13, we thought that's the first order of business that they would tackle, but it did not happen, and they did it on the last session day. So there was delay, but at least we're grateful, or we're glad that finally it was acted upon at the House level, and with that overwhelming vote, way beyond the 1/3 requirement of only 103 votes, and then it got 215 votes. But now we're also expecting that the Senate, at least before they went into this recess, they should have first acted on it, and I was reminding people, of course, about what the Constitution says. It's very clear in Article 11 of the Constitution, Section 3, Paragraph 4, that once the Senate receives the articles of impeachment from the House of Representatives, the Senate is supposed to conduct trial
forthwith.
Shall forthwith. Trial shall forthwith proceed. Shall, mandatory terms, not optional, not discretionary. Now, forthwith, the dictionary says it's at once, immediately. So 5 months, 4 months, or 5 months is not immediately. And, the argument that they cannot tackle that when Congress is on break, when it is adjourned, when it is in recess, I think that can easily be refuted by the argument that in impeachment cases, the matter of impeachment, it does not fall under the legislative function of Congress. It is a special, non-legislative function. It's a mandate, special mandate. And that is why the provisions on impeachment are not found in the chapter in the chapter or article in the Constitution on the legislative department. It is found under a separate article, which is Article 11, accountability of public officers. So that is a clear recognition by
That it is a separate
it's a separate function, and therefore the usual rules governing legislative work cannot apply to this. And given the urgency, given the importance of the matter, that should be given
So to your
utmost priority.
understanding,
Decision.
even the Senate President has acknowledged that it will take time. For example, to first set the rules of the impeachment court, that's number one. The second would be getting an affidavit from the Vice President. She's
response, a
given 10 days,
comment,
a response,
comment.
a comment.
Yes.
And then there's also time needed to convene or to turn the Senate into an impeachment court. There's a pre-trial phase that needs to be held before the actual trial. So kumbaga parang matagal din at hindi rin sapat yung oras. Kapag pinilit na ngayon at kapag pinilit during the resumption of the sessions in June 2. So, hindi po ba talagang matagal yung proseso? And if the point is to hold a credible investigation, a credible impeachment trial, then doesn't it make sense to have that after the President's son?
Well, because it's a choice, Gretchen, between simulan na ngayon yung trial, tapusin bago yung next Congress, which is the 20th Congress. Or i-hold na muna, and then after the, sa next Congress na lang, or after the elections. Pero, hindi pa rin natin mawawala, tingnan dapat talaga yung nandun sa saligang batas. Yes, there might be some, the period, and there are ways to shorten those periods. Like, for example, the crafting of the rules. I don't think it will take days for that, the drafting of the rules. And then, syempre, yung papa-comment sa respondent, si VP Sara, she can, of course, maximize that, and she will maximize that for 10 days. And then, after that, then bilisan yung iba pang mga proseso. But then, okay, if that is their mindset, na mabutin after the elections na lang, or then sa 20th Congress na lang, it will raise also certain constitutional issues. Although, I have a position on that, na pwede siguro yun, pwede pa yun, because again, on the same argument, that this is a special function, a duty of the Senate. But between now doing it and later, the complainants, of course, would prefer that it should be now. It should be ASAP.
Sabi nga nila, no, justice delayed is justice denied. If you have to wait for 5 months,
That's
right?
correct.
It's almost the same. Although ito political exercise ito, but if you apply it in a criminal or civil court,
Yes.
if you respond to a complaint 5 months later, parang ganon.
Yes.
Parang ganon.
That's correct. Justice delayed is justice denied. Accountability is still about exacting justice for the people, because the core ground there is betrayal of public trust.
Kayo po ay nakita namin sa Quadcom hearings.
Yes.
We saw you beside the president, former president. What was on your mind?
Well, actually, I nung pagdating ko dun sa session room na yon, hearing room, is nakita ko siyempre kaagad na magkatabi yung aming nameplate, although he was not yet there. And I was just asking myself, kanino kayang pakana ito? Whose idea was this? And then I even thought na, siguro sinadya talaga nila yan. Maybe they're expecting some spectacle. And the spectacle did happen. But of course, I was calm. I really was calm. And I made sure that I would remain calm.
I want to get you to react
Okay.
to a video of the president because we had the national campaign kick-off.
Wala sa kanila ang may bahid ng dugo dahil sa tukhang. Wala sa kanilang kasabwat sa pagbulsa ng sako-sakong pera, pinagsamantalaan ang krisis ng pandemya, pinabayaan ang ating mga kababayan na magkasakit at mamatay.
Two things. Immediate reaction, Gretchen. Number one, medyo naiiba ngayon yung stance ni President Marcos Jr., ni PBBM. Kasi we know him to be, conflict averse. As much as possible, wala siyang mga ganyan ng mga bombastic stance. So if I'm not mistaken, that's the first time that we're seeing him like that. So pagbabago yan. Pangalawa, klarado na yung kanyang mga sinasabi, patama dun sa isang kampo, sa mga Duterte. Kasi yung mga in-enumerate niya, yun ang mga kasalanan ng Duterte administration, right? Yung violent war on drugs, and then yung corruption during the pandemic, and then yung sa China. So, klarado na ito, parang sinasabi niya sa taong bayan, ito yung mga issues na kailangan yung tingnan, kailangan yung dibdibin, na yan yung mga ginawa, maling mga ginawa ng dating administrasyon. So kami ngayon, meron kaming slate na gano'n, inisa-isa niya na wala daw sa kanyang mga bets ang merong gano'n. But of course, let's see. I think I cannot, if we have to really examine the records of each of those mga administration bets, I don't know.
And I wanted to ask about that actually, because he was referring to his candidates in the administration slate, Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas, and they're not new names. In fact, there were also members of that slate who clapped for the former president in his war on drugs.
Kaya nga, so that's why I cannot really say categorically now na tama, yung talagang tama lahat yung sinabi na eto, tingnan nyo yung mga kandidato, wala, ni isa sa kanila. I think that's in absolute terms, and baka it might be inaccurate if we look at each of these candidates. But I'm not ready to point out or to pinpoint any of them who can be considered as not really falling within those, if we call it, criteria. Basta ang klarado, talagang again, mas malinaw sa atin ngayon na talagang meron ng break-up, na talagang nag-aaway na talaga sila ng matindi. And sigurado, sasagutin din sila ng kabilang kampo, lalo na kung ipipresent na officially yung kandidato ng mga naka-align kay dating Pangulong Duterte. So we are seeing more of that. Na pero at least nakakagulat din ng konti. Now, it's a well-crafted speech actually. Even yung Tagalog maganda, and maganda yung pagkakalatag.
As first nominee of the ML, what would be your personal priority? What reforms are you looking to institute?
Okay. It will be, of course, on a sector basis. We have identified, actually, ML as a party list, and including myself, those are also would be my priorities. We have identified priority legislations for each of these sectors. We also identified certain priority legislations for the whole sector, like, for example, we hope to push for the enactment of the People's Participation and Empowerment Bill, because to strengthen, to promote the voice of the marginalized sectors in the local government councils. And of course, as a human rights advocate, justice and social justice advocate, is that I'm still going to push for human rights-based legislations, like the anti-EJK law, like the Human Rights Defenders Protection Bill, and then also prison reform, correctional system reform bill, and then the political party reform bill, addressing turncoatism, and then
Masusolusyonan po ba yan? Matagal-tagal?
susubukan natin, Gretchen. It's just like the
Where can we find
dynasties.
incentive for our lawmakers to actually act on that? It is like the political dynasty, anti-political dynasty bill, right?
We would just have to build on the very principles behind it, the very philosophy behind laws like that. Those are very difficult, tough legislations to push. But hope springs eternal. Kasi kailangan yung mga ganong reform. Even the party list system law, kailangan din ng amendments, kailangan din ng reform para hindi siya naabuso, hindi siya nababastardize para siguraduhin na yung mga party list ay truly and genuinely working for the interests of the marginalized sectors and not for any other political agenda.
Well, you talked about human rights.
Yes.
And right after you got your freedom, did it surprise you how things have changed under the Marcos administration? Them pivoting from the drug war of the Duterte administration, them actually being open to an ICC, to the ICC investigation, although even if they constantly say that they have no jurisdiction over the Philippines, the latest statement
Yes.
by the DOJ is that they might entertain the Interpol out of comity, out of friendship.
Yes.
And the Philippines will act favorably or positively to a request by the ICC to take custody of any person in relation to its investigation of crimes against humanity in former President Rodrigo Duterte's bloody war on drugs. That was the executive, and that was ES Lucas Bersamin.
Yeah. We are...
Nagulat po ba kayo?
Okay. Nung pumasok na nga yung BBM administration, BBM presidency, I think there are certain sectors who are expecting that it will be again still about youth authoritarianism, because it was previously, the previous administration restored authoritarianism. We had that during the Marcos Sr. Presidency, the martial law and that. So akala natin, since yung anak ng diktador ay presidente, ganun pa rin. Kasi si Mr. Duterte actually restored authoritarianism. Being strong leader na mga ganyan, na kahit mali yung mga naging polisiya niya, na grabe yung mga violations on human rights. Now, but then, we're a bit surprised that it's not that. I mean, there's no showing of authoritarianism on the part of this administration. But maybe it's still early to have such a definitive impression of what exactly the BBM presidency stands for. But then again, at least, as you said, yung sa drug war policy, there's a clear shift from violence, from killings, thousands of Filipinos killed, suspected drug addicts and drug pushers, certainly crimes against humanity, and they have shifted now to the more humane and health-based approach, rehabilitation of drug personalities, drug suspects. So that's of course good, and the change also in their stance from the position of not recognizing the jurisdiction of the ICC and no cooperation at all with the ICC investigators. As you mentioned, meron ng ganon na inclination to help out, to assist ICC, especially kung meron ng warrants of arrest. So, maganda yung ganon. But of course, meron pa rin mga problems like the red tagging. There's still red tagging of certain groups of certain personalities, which is not good because it actually taints democracy. It puts at risk the life and security of those being red tagged. Kaya nga, personally, I've been pushing for the abolition of the NTF-ELCAC. Kasi sila yung mahilig mag-red tag.
You were very much vilified and demonized in the past administration, not just on television, but also on social media.
Yes, especially
when
social media.
When you see your colleagues in the Senate, in the House, those who even spoke against you, what do you feel? Like, how do you talk to them now?
Of course,
especially many of them also have turned against the former president.
Yes, well, I try always to be very civil when it comes to dealing with personalities like that. Half of me would tell me that I think they had no choice. Because you see, precisely one of the reasons why they did that to me, they jailed me, is because they wanted to make an example out of me. So that others would be opposing also the wrong policies of Mr. Duterte would keep quiet, and that exactly what they did. And so I would understand that. But then again, syempre wala akong respeto sa mga ganon. But I just don't show it to them. But deep inside me, I have little, if no
Napatawad
respect
niyo na po
at all.
sila?
Yes.
CPRRD na lang ang hindi.
Yes, Gretchen, that's correct. I still cannot find strength in me to forgive him.
Do you recommend reopening the investigation into the drug war at the congressional level, the way that they have done the Quadcom hearings?
They can always continue with that. Although,
doesn't it jeopardize the safety of those who will testify?
Well, at least compared during the Duterte administration, when most witnesses, if not all possible or probable witnesses, were really hesitant and scared to go public, nakita naman natin na sa Quadcom may mga ilan-ilan na mga lumantad, like si Royina Garma and several others, sila Asherto. So, siguro kung ipapatuloy yan, meron pa na mga lalantad dyan, and tell us more about what happened exactly during the war on drugs. So, pwede pa. Although, ang pinakamas importante than the congressional hearings are the criminal proceedings. And that's why the ICC had to intervene. Kasi wala silang nakita na seryosong investigasyon dun sa culpability ni Mr. Duterte and ni former PNP chief, now Senator Bato de la Rosa. And that is also the focus always of an ICC investigation.
And if they will reopen this local investigation into the war on drugs, it might cause the ICC to step back.
Well, not really. It depends on, kasi depende pa rin yan sa magiging
klase ng investigasyon.
Klase ng investigation. Kung nakikita ng ICC na hindi naman sila ganon ka-desidido at hindi naman sila ganon kaseryoso at nahihirapan tungkol sa pagpapanagot kay Mr. Duterte and kay Bato de la Rosa, nandyan pa rin ang ICC because of the complementarity principle. Because I think the domestic mechanisms of accountability, the domestic criminal proceedings, pwede sila at kayang-kaya nila yung mga middle-level officers lang ng PNP and all the way down dun sa mga low-level perpetrators. Yung mga bumaril talaga, yung mga members ng mga PNP death squad. Kaya yan panagutin sa domestic mechanisms, criminal justice system natin. Pero insofar as those with the highest responsibility, the mastermind, and the chief enforcer,
it is the ICC.
ICC ang mas merong
Do
kakayahan.
you think the victims will have a real chance at justice? Can get justice?
I suppose, I definitely think so. In fact, on the part of the families of the EJK victims, to them, because I've been talking to some of them, to them, the ICC is their only only hope, the best hope for them. So yes.
So they're banking on this investigation.
They're banking on the ICC investigation.
You were in detention for 2,454 days.
Yes.
6
Gretchen.
years, 8 months, 21 days to be exact.
Yes.
You've been Justice Secretary, and you've been on the other end of that stick. What would you change in the justice system if you were given a chance?
Okay, first of all, to me, I believe that what is crucial is appointing the right men and women in the judiciary. Those are capable, those are worthy, and those with high sense of independence. Because the judicial system can truly work if the members of the judiciary have a high sense of independence, that they are immune from improper influence, undue influence, from political pressure.
And that was my sit down with former Senator and Mamamayang Liberal Party List First nominee Laila de Lima. That's it for today's episode of Morning Matters. My name is Gretchen Ho. We are One News, all sides, all the time.